everyone, and welcome to Retro Encounter, RPG fans' bi-weekly podcast of many topics, mostly of the retro variety. I'm Aleks Franiczek, subbing in for Zach as he attends to his new fatherly duties. So this is actually going to be the first of a series of episodes where Zach's going to be absent, and we're going to be using guest hosts. It won't just be me in the meantime. Ben Love will be hosting some episodes, and there will even be a return of a retro celebrity host who, I mean, anyone who has listened to this podcast for more than a year could probably guess. Speaking of Ben, he's joining me today alongside the rest of a great panel I'll now introduce, which includes, Ben.
Hi, yep.
We also got Rob White.
Hello.
Steph Sybydlo.
What's up?
And Paul Skevington.
Whatever.
That was on my bingo card of things that will come up this podcast, so thank you for getting me started strong. All right, so today we're discussing, as Paul alluded to, Final Fantasy VIII, which is one of, I want to say, several black sheeps in the mainline FF series, which seems to have multiple of those. So this was a big game, still is a big game, that did have the unenviable task of following up on Final Fantasy VII, which was one of the biggest and most important video game releases in history, I feel. And it followed up by building a lot on Final Fantasy VII's general visual aesthetics, its kind of cinematic sensibilities, while at the same time tearing down and rebuilding a lot of the series conventions that Final Fantasy had started to become known for at that point. So it was a controversial release at the time, and I feel it remains so to this day. I feel like the fan base on this game is very split, with some people really resonating with the game's stylistic and design differences, while others are kind of far less forgiving of the game's more odd aspects.
And others just like the card game.
Yeah, and that's true. No matter what your opinion on the game itself is, it seems everybody can really get into Triple Triad, which I can see why that is some addicting stuff. So before we talk about the game proper, I want to talk about everyone's background with it. And while maybe not talking about your history with the series as a whole, like there's just so many games at this point, if you also want to talk a little bit about your history with the PlayStation Final Fantasy games, so 7, 8, 9 more broadly, that is welcome as well. So let's start with the people I know a bit less of their history with the game, starting with you, Paul.
Yeah, I was saying before that in terms of the PlayStation 1 games, in Europe we didn't get 1 to 6, so number 7 was my very first Final Fantasy game of any type. And it kind of, for me, therefore, it kind of defined what Final Fantasy actually was. That kind of mix of science fiction and fantasy, steampunky elements, all of that kind of thing. So when 8 came along, I was really, really happy that we were getting something, at least that felt to me at the time like a development on the things that I'd loved already about 7. So yeah, that's me, and I bought it day. I was there day one, and yeah, that's me really.
Okay, cool. How about you, Steph?
Honestly, it was too long ago for me to even remember. But yeah, we bought it day one. I watched my brother play it, but like he'd always play ahead, so I was sad. So then I took it up myself, and I loved it. Like I just remember enjoying walking around it and just kind of falling in love with the pre-rendered backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Just like thinking about like I started like thinking on it, just thinking of these spaces and places and just how they make you feel and all that. And like I don't know, FF8's just a really, really pretty game.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's really stuck with me, the mood of it all.
Yeah,
it doesn't always make sense to me, but I love the mood.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things about the mood is that it kind of doesn't make sense in a lot of ways with this game. Yeah,
it feels like fever dream.
Absolutely, that's the exact word I'd use too. And regarding the rest of the panel, I really like how we have two people basically on, I think, the opposite sides of the experience and preference spectrums. So let's start with you, Ben.
Yeah, so I have never played this game before. This is my first time, and I've also this is my first PSX Final Fantasy game as well. I have not played 7 or 9. So Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting experience thus far. I kind of feel similarly to this game as I did about Final Fantasy VI. Um, but we'll get into that. It's definitely an interesting experience playing it for the first time now, with a lot of different RPGs, both from the time and since, under my belt.
I can
Than I think it
honestly
was.
only imagine. It's got to be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for better or worse.
yeah, it definitely confirms a lot of my biases about Final Fantasy as a series in general.
Mm.
But I'll get into that later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts on this game. I feel like you have a pretty interesting kind of experience in as being like an RPG fan staff, because I feel like everybody here has like pretty vast experience with Final Fantasy, and I know you have like experience with tons of games. So to hear that you just like never got around to these is a really fascinating perspective.
I feel
But
bad that I never got around to 9. I bought it again day one, but you can sort of spinning off from what I was saying about 7 kind of defining it for me. Once I
Mhm.
got it and put it in, I was like, what is this? Looking at those kind of cute, fancy characters, no, giant spaceships or anything, and I was like, nah, I'm out. And I've never finished it, so that's something I really regret. I hope I can
It
get
does a
to go
lot.
back to it one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I agree. 9 is the one I'm like the most excited to get to of the PlayStation Final Fantasies, because I've always heard it's the most Dragon Quest like of the Final Fantasy games, so that appeals to me.
In terms of tone, I would definitely like agree with that. But I love Dragon Quest, and nine's probably one of my least favorite Final Fantasies. So
Oh,
Oh my
interesting.
god.
Okay.
it's doing its own things as
Disagreements.
well. Yeah. I mean, that's what being a Final Fantasy fan is all about, is disagreeing with people. I
Yeah.
feel. But how about you, Rob? I know this is I hope I'm not speaking for you here, but this is one of your favorite games, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it is. It's not only my favorite Final Fantasy game, but it's one of my favorite games. I got it, I think, around the same time that I actually got a PlayStation, and I was playing Final Fantasy VII and VIII at the same time. But I remember, like, in the months before I actually got my PlayStation, I had some magazines at home because I think I must have like known that I was going to get one for Christmas or something. I don't know. But I had all these magazines with like previews of Final Fantasy VIII, and I was so excited to play it. Like the pictures of the environments and the characters, I really loved the kind of like sleek, futuristic, like kind of sci-fi fantasy look of
So
everything.
unique looking.
Yeah, so I was like super excited to play it, and then when I got it and I was playing it kind of alongside 7, I was just always more drawn to 8. But because I hadn't really played any games much before, I think I'd only played like a couple of games on the PC maybe before I got my PlayStation, and I had never played any RPGs. The whole experience initially was quite challenging because I didn't really understand about like leveling up your characters to get stronger, and like you need to
No.
engage with the systems in the game in order to actually progress. So I kept having these like quite serious like roadblocks where I'd get to a boss and just be like absolutely destroyed because I just didn't understand what I was doing. But yeah, like eventually I got the hang of it. I started to kind of learn more about what I was doing, and then finally managed to complete the game. It took me like over 100 hours, I think. The clock like reset itself while I was playing it because it took me so long.
That's amazing.
But like the whole experience I just absolutely loved. And it was so like consuming, I think, at the time, that even like when I got to the final boss, my mum and my sister came up to my bedroom to like watch me finish the game,
Oh, cool.
which was crazy. But yeah, I just have a very like special place in my heart, I guess, for this game. I can understand why it's maybe a bit controversial and why some people have issues with certain parts of the game, but I wonder if maybe because I'm kind of coming in at it from having not experienced, like Paul said, like we didn't really get any of the games before it other than 7, so
Mm.
I didn't really have anything to compare it to. So those like weird elements that some people are not so keen on, I don't mind. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because I think a lot of the negative reactions towards the game were just because of how different they made like the game systems from like Final Fantasy VII or really like any other kind of conventional RPG. So to not have like that contrast, I imagine, made it a little easier to get into.
I guess so, yeah. And I think, like, I mean, we'll probably get into this in a bit more detail in a minute, but like stuff like, I know a lot of people don't like the fact that magic is like a consumable and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I feel like that kind of adds to the more sort of realistic nature of this game in
Mm.
terms of the like style, and like the characters feel more kind of just like ordinary people rather than like having very kind of distinct like classes or types. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it kind of works in the game world, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
I
strange
definitely
thing
see what you're
is,
saying.
yeah, and the strange thing is, and I'm probably going to talk about later on about this kind of duality of everything with this, but at the time it was released, and I'm sure there was some of this in more sort of hardcore circles, but I do not remember any of the negative reaction. Like I feel like we take it for granted now that there's a split reaction on
Mm,
Mm.
8, but at the
mm.
time, I don't think that was the case. I think it was mostly positive, um, at least in the spheres that I was exposed to. Anyway,
Okay.
Definitely in terms of
um,
the critical reception, yeah, like
mm,
if you look up like old reviews of this game, they were just about as good as Final Fantasy VII. Like it was
Mm.
yeah.
really well received critically.
Yeah, and that's not me denying anyone's experiences, obviously, of at the time. It was just a feeling at the time was not the same as the narrative became later on.
Well, I
Um,
imagine that has a lot to do with how ubiquitous or mainstream like RPGs were at the time, which was
mm,
is to say they were not very, especially in
maybe,
like Western gaming press and just Western audiences in general. Because I mean, a lot of people would cite like Final Fantasy VII as like their first like RPG for a lot of people, right? And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
with this game following up, I think there's not like a lot of those genre conventions were probably not really solidly established in people's minds.
Mm.
So the ways that this Bucks convention maybe wasn't just as noticeable, or people just didn't care as much because they weren't really tied to those ideas
mm,
as much, because they hadn't really experienced a lot of those games or those systems yet.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think there's definitely something to that. Um, I mean, just like talking about my own experiences, like I basically grew up in a household where, I mean, like I have two older brothers. My oldest brother's 8 years older, and for him, like Final Fantasy VII was and still is to this day the undisputed like goat of RPGs.
Yeah.
And he didn't like 8 nearly as much, and I think it was like because of the ways it did end up deviating from 7, and he was also playing RPGs on like the NES and SNES already too. So I think the weirdness did get to him as kind of like a more long time RPG fan. As for me, I didn't actually get to play these games myself until I was around like 11 or 12, even though they were like always being played in my house because my brother would always not let me play kind of like his most recent console. So I was always playing like the older stuff. But Final Fantasy VIII did kind of, it was a pretty key game, I think, in me developing my tastes like apart from my brothers, along with like Majora's Mask, because these were both like follow-ups to two of the most like critically praised games like of all time. And like I was kind of liking the weirder vibes that their sequels went for. So and I feel like that's kind of been also continuing on with my tastes in games, like just games that try to be different by playing with their systems in some way.
Younger sibling
Um,
vibes, if you will.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm definitely
As a
following
younger
that.
sibling, I get it.
So now this is my third time playing the game. And because I played it again around like age 16, at which point I like was really identifying with Squall, as kind of cringy as that sounds, but I was a quiet loner teen a little bit, and I kind of leaned into that. But nowadays, playing it like as a full grown adult, I actually really appreciate the way this game represents how teenagers like construct personas and also like deconstructs them at the same time through the character development. So as an adult, I'm kind of getting like a newfound appreciation of the game at the same time.
I actually
Um,
had a really similar point myself down the line. Yeah, like I noticed that a lot too, that I took the characters for granted a little bit.
yeah, for sure. And yeah,
They're
we'll
doing a
get
lot of
into
work
that.
beneath the surface.
Is everyone playing the remaster, by the way? I'm just kind of curious about that too, because obviously there's the PS1 original and then the remaster is
Yeah.
available on all modern consoles.
Yes, I'm playing the remaster on Switch, which I
Me
have never
too.
done before, so that's been cool.
Yep. I'm also playing the remaster on Switch. I wanted to play on original hardware, but I had the trip coming up, so I was like, "Oh, there's no way I'm going to fit enough time at home with it." So I had to play it on the Switch instead, so I could bring it with me.
Yeah,
Good idea.
and I feel like for this game in particular, like the quality of life features do save you a lot of time that you really don't need to spend. That you would kind of be more influenced to in the original game, like the
I hated
having
that
like
prison
no
tower.
encounters. Yeah, or 3 times speed for draw grinding like helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes,
I don't know if we're going to go into
absolutely.
this, but I mean, I've been playing and I'm thinking again. I'm going to keep going to the duality because at the time when I had it, I will say I absolutely loved the game, and it was probably my favorite game for a very long time. But looking back, I've no idea how I went through all that drawing stuff on normal speed.
Oh my god, I
Yeah.
know.
Doing it now, I'm like, I was like, it didn't. I don't remember it ever bothering me, but now I'm like, no,
No way.
that would have been horrible. Yeah, so I'm really grateful that I'm not playing on original hardware right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, same. I do
Uh,
think like the remaster like does ruin the seamlessness of the pre-rendered background visuals a
Yeah.
little bit.
Mhm.
Like the HD character models definitely stick out a little awkwardly.
Mm.
But they do look nice. Like I think they
Yeah.
polish them up nicely, and yeah, the convenience is just too good to pass up, I think, at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I remember feeling that with Final Fantasy IX as well. I definitely get the same feel from that, like that the characters kind of stand out from the pre-rendered backgrounds of it in that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think a little more deliberately with the actual like original graphics, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna
But
do?
before we talk more about the game itself, I want to go over a little bit of development history, just because I feel like the context around this game's development is kind of fascinating and might be interesting to inform the rest of our discussion. So this came out 2 years after Final Fantasy VII on September 9th, 1999, or 9999, as it was shown in marketing.
Dreamcast
Love
Day.
that,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Same day as
Was
the
it really?
Dreamcast.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so Dreamcast and FF8 in one day was a very good day for anybody who likes weird games. So at this point, Square has basically divided FF7's core creative group up to work on 2 follow-ups. So the series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi was hands-on leading the team and writing FF9 while he was also working on Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which meant that FF8 had a lot of people who were kind of creative to the creative cores of Final Fantasy VII, but now that had more room to kind of like develop their own kind of vision. So all Sakaguchi did was like basically tell the team that FF8's theme is to be love, and kind of gave them creative freedom to develop that as they saw fit. Some of the core staff that got retained from Final Fantasy VII was director Yoshinori Kitase, who had this was now his 4th director role. I think he was also director on FF6, Chrono Trigger, and FF7. But this time he had more control at the creative helm. Character designer Tetsuya Nomura also came back, and writer Kazushige Nojima took on a larger role in developing FF8's stories and themes. It's also funny, like, reading interviews about this game and just like interviews around this time from Final Fantasy developers in particular, because although Nomura's role is technically character designer, like other members of the team always describe how he's always like pushing unsolicited opinions and ideas for like story and stuff, and almost serving as like an unofficial co-director, which I guess like that sort of eagerness is eventually what got him, being director on the Kingdom Hearts series. But yeah, a lot
I
of
saw
that
some of his
started with 7 and 8.
storyboards. They're like really beautiful. He's a really, really good draft and storyboard artist. Like a lot of
Absolutely.
the angles on the scenes, like how they efficiently capture the FMVs, like he does good work in that department.
Mm.
Yeah, and apparently both the Balam Garden dance sequence and the Sorcerer's Parade at the end of Disc 1 which are arguably like the most memorable parts of this first part of the game we're discussing, were his ideas. So yeah, clearly he's got some creative ambition. But yeah, this trio of devs would also be later involved in like FF10 and the early Kingdom Hearts games. I almost like see FF8 as like proto Kingdom Hearts in some of its like themes
Yeah,
and
I can see
vibes.
that.
Like you said, Steph, fever dream like quality. Like I definitely associate that with Kingdom Hearts, and I definitely see it here with the
Yeah.
narrative elements. And then Kitase is a vocal movie lover, and you can kind of see him continuing to integrate like cinematic sensibilities into the identity of Final Fantasy, like from 6 to 8.
Yeah, the presentation in this game is, I think, probably its standout quality. Like
Mm.
For
the
real. Yeah.
visuals and aesthetics and the way that they combine, like the backgrounds and the transitions to FMVs
Mm.
and just some of the
They're
FMV
really creative with
scenes.
those in this one.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like they look great. Well, they don't
yeah,
look great, but it's well-ish done. God, I don't know what I'm
yeah.
saying. It did look good.
Well, they employ this technique that I first encountered in the Fear Effect games. I don't know if
Oh
you guys
yeah,
are familiar with those, but where they use, a lot of games in this period use pre-rendered backgrounds, but they use a lot of what are essentially like animated GIFs in the pre-rendered backgrounds to have like moving elements. But then this game will also just like use that and then seamlessly transition into an FMV from like the moving elements in the background, which is just like really crazy visual flair that like I don't know that I've ever seen in any any game of this era or just in general. The kind of way they're able to do that, which is very impressive.
Yeah, I don't remember too much about Fear Effects. I was too busy like dying by pressing the one like left once or something, throwing the box across the room and never playing it again.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I remember at the time when I first saw this, yeah, it was just astounding. I think I mentioned it elsewhere before that on the same system, to me, the character models and how much they'd improved since 7
for
was
real.
almost unbelievable. Yeah, it was almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
And exactly as you were saying, that even now, looking at it now in terms of those transitions between those FMV segments and integrated into the game itself, is just, it still looks amazing, I think, even now.
Oh, I agree completely. I love the way the PS1 Final Fantasy games look, and I do think it's like the thing that really brings me back to them most. I think they're all actually flawed games in like one way or another, like pretty flawed. But the artistry behind the presentation, I think, is something that has made them like just so timeless, and makes me always excited to revisit them.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, like the graphic design team I know used way more pre-rendered screens than FF7 did. I think the jump was from around like 500 screens in FF7 to over 800 here. And in the ways like kind of
Most
these
of
like
them are Esther.
yeah.
Hate that
Touche.
place.
But I love the way like this game, like even in a single conversation, will swap between like different camera angles to make the storytelling and character expression feel more dynamic. It's just like got so much like expressiveness through the backgrounds and the way it uses them and the way it likes like playing with angles and scene setting and things like that.
Yeah, and it's like that as I said, that surreal effect you're talking about, dreamy effect. The fact that it isn't at the levels of like photorealism that you might get from something like Final Fantasy 16 now really adds to that atmosphere. You're slightly disconnected, but you're drawn in because of that. And yeah, I think that's something that's really difficult to replicate nowadays on modern technology.
Oh, for sure. It's
I
a
like
it's a
that
very
idea.
distinct
That's
feel.
interesting. Yeah. I get exactly what you mean because it doesn't look quite realistic. It has like a painterly or kind of look to it. Yeah, it just kind
Absolutely.
of makes it feel that much more surreal. I like that.
I suppose the closest maybe we've got, I could bring in a Claire Obscure reference and say that kind of, like you say, we're talking painterly look.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little parallel there. I'm sure Ben Starr would appreciate that that
Yeah, 'cause even
comparison.
that game, yeah, it actually has a good stylization to it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I never thought of it that way.
Well, shout out because I know the director of Claire Obscure is a huge FF8 defender, so there actually
Really?
might be something to that. Yeah.
That makes so much sense to me, I guess.
Yeah.
You never hear that. And then when they found like what his YouTube account with like S ranking Devil May Cry combos and stuff, and I was like, yeah, no, that's not surprising.
But the last thing I'll talk about in terms of like development is just Nojima and like the way this game is written. Because I read that his goal was to make the emotional core of the story unfold in the present rather than in FF7, where it's like very flashback dependent on kind of like the main like story beats and the most like emotional moments. And he also wanted to have the characters' emotional expression and regulation be much more realistic, kind of grounded more in subtlety and more literary sensibilities and less kind of like manga influenced. He wanted to like there to be essentially an FF8 more to read into what's unsaid with the characters, and I think like definitely there's something to that because I like the way the game uses not only writing like dialogue, it uses Squall's like internal monologuing.
So much. I think this is
Yeah,
like the most we've ever been in an FF character's head.
for sure, and also just like the animations of the character models in dialogue scenes like will just be like little subtle additions to like the
Yeah.
scene, like again like building on that cinematicness but very much in the using the language of like the PS1 RPG at the same time. I personally love it. And this is also shout out to Alexander O. Smith because this was one of his first localization duties, and he would become a pretty famous localizer, basically working on all of Matsuno's games from Vagrant Story on, like the Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, Tactics Ogre. That was all Alexander O. Smith, and he's gotten some good industry recognition from his work. And yeah, I feel like this is like just thinking of like 90s JRPGs, like one of the best written English scripts from that era, I'd say alongside Earthbound.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well, okay, I want to say the localization I think is actually fine. I don't
Yeah.
think it's the localization, but my perception of the writing in this game is not very high, and it's mostly because, and I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts on this, but I don't think any of the conversations, with the exception of conversations between Squall and Renoa, actually feel like real like conversations. Like a lot of them are just characters just like saying things in the vicinity of each other and then like not really reacting to what the other character said and then just saying some random thing. Like it's so disjointed, I feel like a lot of the character interactions, especially with the party members like Zell or Selfie or Kistis, like I'm just like, what are they? They're so weird. Like the interactions are so strange. But maybe that's just my perception. But
I
I've
thought it was
played a
only
lot of
FF9 where it got good, and I actually could really gel with the characters. But
yeah, I've
Fate
played
I
a
thought
lot
was a
of
bit stiff.
games like RPGs contemporary to this one, and I don't generally have this problem with games of this era. But this, it's like, and I agree that I don't think it's the localization. Like the actual text, like I think conveys what is meant to be conveyed like quite well. And there are some
Yeah.
like really funny lines and things that we'll probably get into later that I've noticed.
Hmm.
But the actual interaction between characters just seems so bizarre to me.
I feel
Yeah.
the complete opposite.
Interesting.
Surprisingly,
Interesting.
I feel the complete opposite. I feel like out of the whole series, 8 has some of the best like serious and kind of subtle moments between the characters. I don't know. I feel like the characters talk to each other more like just like regular people would do rather than like video game character talk. And like just a couple of like moments that stood out in this playthrough that I'm doing now, like the conversation between Quistis and Squall in the training center, I think is one that was really great, where she's
Is it
like trying to kind of like seek support, I guess, from him, and she's being very like open and honest about how she feels, and like she's generally I feel like she's generally quite an anxious person anyway, who's always like seeking support from everybody else to like validate what she's doing or whatever.
Is
But
that the one where she reveals that she's like actually the same age as them, but their
yes.
teacher? Because that I was like rolling my eyes. So
No,
much at that.
I thought that was a really. I think that's a really good conversation. And then like some of I find like Renoa quite interesting because in like the early game, like definitely the first disc, I think she's quite unlikable. I don't like her very much at all. I think she comes across as quite bratty. And then like as the game goes on, I think she like kind of tones it down a bit and like opens herself up a bit more to everyone else. Yeah, it's interesting.
Renault is the only character that I really like at this point in the game.
I do like Renoa. I do like her overall, but I think playing it through this time, I was noticing a bit more like actually I think I don't really like her so much at the beginning, and she grows on me as the game goes on.
Apart from I love Renoa from me just immediately, I can't betray her memory. No, but the way I look at it is more in the line of what Rob was saying, to be honest. And I feel that the characters talk that way to each other because they're quite good reflections of just young people trying to get to grips with each other in this weird school environment that they've all been thrust into. And Quistis having this really awkward position of being a teacher and student at the same time, and kind of like half mocking school and half mocking herself most of the time. I really find that quite appealing. So yeah, I'm more supportive of the dialogue and interactions on this one. I love at the moment. I'm really loving, Sifa's henchmen and hench people. I love their blind loyalty.
Gaijin and Raijin. Yeah.
Oh yes, I love them too. They're great.
The way they express it, I think. It's highlights for me.
I think sorry, Alex.
Oh, it's all good. I just wanted to say I think I see what both of y'all are saying. I see both sides of this because I am on the side that I think the game's writing is generally more subtle than a lot of other RPGs from the time. And I really like it for that reason. But I do acknowledge Ben's point from the perspective of like, this is just like a weird story with like weird character interactions, and that can feel a little bizarre at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I like Renoa, because she's like the only, and of course I haven't played through the whole game, so I'm sure that your perspective changes when you're looking at it with the knowledge of what comes later. But at this point, like, she's the only one who I really understand her motivations. She's the only one where there's like a real, you can kind of really grasp like what means something to her and like why she's doing what she's doing and like what's important to her. Whereas the other characters, like, I have no sense of really who they are as people, what their own motivations or goals are, or really anything like that with the rest of the party. And I mean, I'm sure that will change obviously as we get further in, but just at this beginning part, it's like you have all these weirdos who are like like mercenary children, and then you have Renoa, who's just like, she's from this town that's being oppressed, and she's like fighting back against it, and she, in a kind of a goofy and childish way, because her and her compatriots are all still kids, but they're fighting for something they believe in, and they care about the people in their town, and you see those interactions in Timber of them, like, obviously having this community and camaraderie with each other. And I don't really get that from the rest of the characters at all. And so it's like, I don't, it's hard to connect, I guess, with characters like Squall or Zell or Selfie, because I just don't even really understand what makes them tick, or like what their own motivations or goals are. If that makes sense.
No, I see what you're saying, and I do think, to your point, I think Renoa's deliberately written in like a contrasting way to the rest of the party, and especially Squall. I feel like Squall and Renoa, especially early on in the game, are kind of work as foils, as being like kind of epitomes of teenage cynicism and teenage idealism, like on opposite perspectives, with Squall obviously being the cynical part of that. But I do think like just the other characters, even though they're like awkward interactions, like they're written as teenagers, and they feel like, even though they're in this absolutely ridiculous like situation, like being child soldiers at like this child soldier training university essentially, that they're like written in a pretty believable light, at least for the time.
Yeah, I think too, like Squall's best moments, I think, are when he's interacting with Renoa, because Renoa will like a lot, like she challenges him on his behavior, and then you
Mm.
see like his internal monologue of being like trying to like justify his response or regret like what he just said or things like that, right? And so like her interactions with him, I feel like do kind of break down that like facade that he's putting up. But other outside of that, like I just don't get like a sense that like he really has any connection to the other people like in the part. Well, there is a bit with Kistis, right? I don't want to just say there's like nothing there, but like it doesn't really seem like him and Selfie and Zell are friends at all. And the relationship with Safer also is just like I mean, obviously they're like shonen protagonist rivals or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But there's been, at least at this point, there's nothing to really establish that other than the opening shot where they're like training fighting, right? But there you don't really get a lot of like what makes that rivalry between them tick, other than that they're the coolest anime boys at anime mercenary academy, right? And so they're like naturally gonna butt heads, but like I haven't gotten a lot of what actually is the foundation for that in the game itself, I guess, at
I
this
mean,
point anyway.
yeah, I mean, like at this point, I do feel like Squall's internal monologue has revealed some interesting uh details about his relationship with Cypher. Like pretty early on when they're on the mission in Dolit, like he kind of like Squall starts reflecting on um like how being around Cypher kind of like empowers him in a way. Like he feels like more
Mhm.
confident around Cypher and things like that. And then later on in the disc, when Squall thinks that Cypher is dead, he kind of like lashes out for the first time in like the entire opening section of the game, because he's like kind of like faced with this dilemma of like, oh man, like it's like a mortality thing. He's like, oh man, like once you're dead, like other people can just like construct their own ideas of like who you are as a person, and you no longer have like this kind of authority over your self-presentation that I think he and Cypher, as like kind of immature teenagers, like both try to exert early on. So I
Mhm.
think there is like a bit of an interesting contrast being developed between the two. But this would be like just a good transition to just let's just talk about this cast a little bit more broadly. So like it's a pretty small party. Like there's only 6 recruitable characters, which is pretty low for an FF game. We also get introduced to them, I feel like, unusually quickly. Most of them are students at Balam Garden, training to be members of Seed, which is a mercenary force hired to perform combat duties for governments as child soldiers. Really wild plot stuff, but I feel like this game is more about like tone and vibes than the realism of the storyline.
Yeah.
And they're mostly fighting against Galbadia, which is an authoritarian militaristic regime, basically the stand-in for the usual Final Fantasy evil empire, who are trying to exert their force on the world. So Squall is our Sigma male loner badass archetype. I feel like he's like deliberately kind of constructed similarly to Cloud in that sense. While at the same time, I feel like the trope is being deconstructed just by virtue of him being a teenager who thinks he's more mature than he actually is. And I feel like that's a big part of every character's development in this game, with that internal monologuing and how that develops as things go on. Cypher is then Squall's rival, who he actually seems to like and respect quite a bit. They both use gun blades, which is super cool, and makes them even more rivals. So his personality, I think, is like shown to be very similar to Squall, like both being kind of these Sigma dudes. But he's also more openly confrontational and a total jerk, I would say. I think if Cypher doesn't mature soon enough, he would grow up to be like a successful CEO type psychopath.
He's kind of a
Um,
bully, right?
yeah, he's a
Yeah.
big bully. Quistis then is, I guess, a hot teacher / secretary archetype.
She's the Reen of this game.
Yeah. I think Nomura clearly has a secretary fetish or something. Her weapon is a whip, for crying out loud. But she is, I still think she's a pretty good character. She's like intelligent and level-headed, and as Rob alluded to earlier, maybe a bit insecure in a way that's kind of interesting. Zell is goofy, kind of dense, but also friendly, loves hot dogs and punching things, and his outfit looks like it was designed by Hot Wheels. Selfie is super energetic, a little clueless, very funny. She kind of looks and acts younger than the rest of the party, but isn't. And then Renoa, like we've been discussing, she's like a more compassionate idealist. She's not part of Seed, but rather a member of a grassroots resistant movement called the Forest Owls. It also turns out early on we find that she's the daughter of a military general, kind of fighting against her privileged status for a good cause. And then the last character we get introduced to a little bit later than the rest is Irvine, who's like a trained sniper and cowboy looking wannabe Casanova. Yeah, what do you, so like we talked a little bit about the core of like Squall, Renoa, Cypher, but what do you guys think about these characters and their development in Disc 1? And also, feel free to comment on any of the fashion choices as well.
Well, Zell looks like he just walked out of the bouncer, which is kind of funny.
That's a good one.
I like reflecting on what we've already said. I kind of do like Sifa and the way the entire thing starts with that gigantic fight sequence where he ends up scarring Squall, and for me that sets the tone. Whereas I can understand the criticisms, but for me that kind of sets the tone of the relationship and everything that we see going forwards. It's quite brutal. Coming back to it now,
I love that you share a scar with your rival. Like, I don't know why, I do think that is kind of cool. And they both have equally cool like jackets on. One's doing the trench, the other one's doing like a kind of crop jacket with a big fur lining. Like, I do think their designs are really, really neat. Very opposites too.
It's something that really, I know we've talked about already, but yeah, it does really stick out about this game. Those designs are very distinctive. They're not things you're going to forget whether you like them or not very quickly. And talking about the dialogue that we've been reflecting on, that's and that sense of alienation, that Squall's internal monologue, and the way that, because we're playing a game without voice acting or anything like that, it's really it's kind of a strange experience to see this kind of bracketed stuff come in that's contradicting the next sentence that comes along, and the fact that he's the only one that we're really peering inside his head in that much depth makes Squall into something better than well, for me at the time anyway, more appealing than Cloud was previously.
Yeah, definitely more complex than Cloud off the jump, I'd say.
Yeah, big time. Because like I guess Cloud kind of comes around into his own, but like Squall really hangs on to being like even more reclusive than Cloud. Like that first chat he has with Quistis, like looking at the like at makeout point or where they were, like he just like turns her down pretty cold. Like, hey, I'm just trying to talk to you. It's like, I don't care. Like he's just not like not even trying. He's just so against it, and it's like, damn, like Cloud would never ever do that even.
And it becomes really obvious. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and it becomes really obvious that he's deliberately trying to separate himself from all of them. And the more enthusiastic and characters like Selfie, always trying to, and as I think we see sometimes from her internal monologue and dialogue, that she's fighting against her own tendencies or her own lack of hope sometimes. That really contrasts heavily with Squall, who's effectively just giving up on everyone around him. Trying to forge his own, a path on his own, probably more out of cowardice than bravery, and I find that quite compelling.
I really like everybody. I like them all. I think I enjoy how they all feel quite unique, maybe with the exception of Zell and Selfie, who they do have a bit of crossover, I think, in like their personality and behavior.
For sure.
But like Selfie, I think is her positivity feels to me more concentrated on protecting her friends, and it feels a bit more like love based possibly, whereas Zell's positivity and energy feels a bit more chaotic, possibly less about protecting the others and maybe more about himself possibly, or like just beating the bad guy maybe. I think the one that I like the least is Irvine. I feel like he doesn't really develop a huge amount of connection with anyone else other than Selfie.
He kind of drops off after his failed
Yeah.
attempt.
Yeah.
It's weird. That was exactly what I was gonna say, Rob.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, you can just shut up now. I don't care.
He's always
Um,
been my least favorite.
mm,
Yeah.
I like him a lot, like just design wise. I always thought he just
Yeah.
really steps on very boldly.
He does have a very good limit break though, but
True.
yeah. I don't like his design very much. Quistis, Selfie, and Irvine are all like Team Brown. I feel like we needed some more, a bit more color going on in the outfits. And also, I want to shout out that Sorceress's designs, Adia and Ultimecia and Adele, I think all look really cool.
They're so good. There's a
they're
really
so
good
good.
visual design language to this game in general. Like
Mhm.
places look so unique and powerful and artistic on their own.
It's very Disney actually, which makes me wonder if this game kind of formed the genesis for that collaboration with Kingdom Hearts kind of coming about, because the Idea, like it's just so like Maleficent or
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
Queen in Snow White or whatever. Like and with Renoa too, like it's just such a, I don't know, like Disney kind of idea of the characters.
Yeah, it was such a weird pivot to like focus villains as witches, just witches. And obviously they have a bit more power here, but it's just interesting to have a whole story that revolves around witches.
Yeah.
That
I know-
cinematic though at the end of the first disc where Renoa tries to give her the bangle and she's like sat in the chair and she's got her amazing, I don't even know what it is,
yeah.
but that weird like head
That
thing with
helmet.
like a big shell on the
Yeah,
side,
it's
and
so
then
cool.
her like hair disappears. It like, where does
Mm.
her hair go? I don't know, but it looks amazing. She's cool.
When she throws Renault around like she's a twig, just with an absolute lack of.
As the
Yeah.
kids would say, she's serving you know what. You know?
She is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's saying up really well. The Disney comparison is really good. But yeah, that whole animated sequences serves to set her up as a compelling villain immediately, and her berating of the crowd is hilarious. Or contemptuous treatment of the crowd.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit about a leader that exists today.
Don't know who you mean.
I did read that apparently the reason for like choosing the sorceresses as like kind of the villains was also like a way of like getting the fantasy back in like Final Fantasy, because otherwise
Oh,
like
nice and
so
easy.
much of this game's
Mhm.
setting and characters are like more realistic than previous games, and like by having these very fantastical designs as the villains, like they stand out so much more. They feel like so like extra compared to like the rest of what we're seeing in the game, and I think that does work as a pretty good contrast.
Yeah, this game reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy 15. And I mean, I'm also not a big fan of Final Fantasy 15, so maybe that's part of why.
I was gonna say
One day
it's
we'll
like
find one you
Final.
like.
I was gonna say it's a bit like Final Fantasy 15, except it's good.
Oh, hush. I am a staunch FF8 and 15 defender, so you have to get out of here.
But it reminds me of Final Fantasy 15. There's a lot of superficial similarities, like the more advanced like world you drive a car around, right?
Yep.
Like, and the more like modern technology that's everywhere. Also, using spells as a consumable is also what Final Fantasy 15 does.
Mhm.
But I think part of my issue with this game is the same issue I had with Final Fantasy 15, is that I don't really think it didn't really grab me with the world building. Like I don't know that enough is really done to establish like the world and the stakes of the
Yeah, no,
world
for real,
at
yeah.
the beginning. And so like I don't really get a sense of like what this world is like and like everyone's place in it. And I think that is what makes it difficult for me to like latch on to the story and the characters in this game the way I would in some other games. Like I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy XII, for example, and I think that game does a really great job establishing the world and setting independent of the characters even. And this game, I'm like, I don't really understand how this world works. I don't really know, I mean,
Why
the
are the children
basics of it.
soldiers?
Yeah, like why does this exist? And also like,
Yeah, I
it's
found
just
myself
so
asking why a lot. And
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
I do find though with this one that actually hadn't really occurred to me until just now is that in comparison to a lot of other games, like the initial amount of world in Final Fantasy VIII that the like characters in the game would be aware of is actually quite small, because they don't know anything about what's going on in Esthar. All of the
Mhm.
continent in the south is like deserted because it was destroyed, I think,
Yeah.
when the last Lunar Cry happened. So there's only really like Balam and Galbadia over on the left. So the actual like, I guess the like goings on of the world is much smaller than like something like Final Fantasy XII, where everyone knows everyone, if you know what I mean. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I would sort of build on that and say that there's not huge amounts of, although I appreciate the point, I think there's not huge amounts of world building at the start, because it is strangely, despite all the world altering things that potentially are happening, it's quite a small personal story, and the world is Balam Garden. Really, is the world, and its interactions with it, the nearby things like the nearby town of Balam, and the little glimpses we get into the students' relationships with them, that sort of thing. So I feel like at least initially, it doesn't really need that kind of massive scope that some of the other Final Fantasies have.
Yeah,
Because of
and
that.
I understand that, but I think that, and this is some of it maybe is just me approaching it from a different lens, like being older and coming to this game. Like I feel like the concept of this like mercenary school is like so high concept that in order for me to buy into it, I really need some kind of justification for like why society is set up in this way. And you do not get that at all in here, at least at the beginning. And so it's like, it's just so ridiculous. I don't know. I find it very ridiculous, and this is true of a lot. I think a lot of games were influenced by this game, and you've seen this is a kind of an RPG trope at this point, like the combat school or whatever, right? That is come up in a bunch of different games. You know, Valkyria Chronicles 2 or Trails of Cold Steel or what have you, right? And so I recognize it from that aspect, but like it's just such an unbelievable idea that I need more to like buy into it, I think. And I just I haven't gotten that, I guess, and maybe I won't, and that's fine. Right, it doesn't have to do
You
that,
do
but
find out more
okay.
as the game goes on. You find
Yeah,
out more about what the purpose of them is. Yeah.
I
you
can
do,
see that,
but
but I think it's really drawing actually quite heavily from not. I know he's saying we're looking forward; it's become a trope. I think looking backwards, it's drawing quite heavily from fantasy literature, the kind of dark. Nowadays, you'd call it dark academia, something like that. The school environment, the children being put through rough trials in order to come out the other end as some kind of honed weapon is quite common in literature as well as gaming, I think.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody's raising good points. It's a great discussion. I do think it gets like they do explain a bit of things as you guys are describing. I also totally see Ben's point that like the world building is a little messy here. I just don't think that's the game's priority. I don't think it cares.
Yeah.
And like when I'm playing it, like I find myself very easily not caring about it, because what's core to me here are the vibes, the tone, and the character interactions. And for me, all of those things work. And I think that's a big reason why I'm able to overlook some of the issues I do acknowledge with this game, is like plot and world building.
It could be that I'm being a bit forgiving because of those. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Well, I will acknowledge. I mean, I do think that the interactions between Squall and Renoa, which I think kind of form the core, like the emotional core of the story, like I do think those parts are compelling.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't find a lot else compelling about the narrative, but I do like that, and I actually think I like that it's like you're really seeing them from the beginning of their relationship. There's no
Yeah.
Like they go from not knowing each other at all, and like Squall like seeing her like outside the window or whatever, right, and then interacting with each other, and then kind of put in conflict with one another, but also having to work together. And so it's a very, like, I feel like organic and natural build up with their relationship, which I think is often rare for RPGs, and particularly of this time period. So that aspect of the game, I think, is handled, and the story is handled quite well. I kind of think a lot of the other things suffer for that, but it is compelling, and I think it feels very human and realistic, their relationship.
Yeah, and at the time, I think I'm sure we'll speak about it more, later on. But that depiction of a romantic relationship, we really hadn't got that anywhere. I don't think really to this sort of level, let alone in a JRPG or anything like that. But just generally, it was quite a. It was one of the big draws for this at the time for me.
Yeah, I mean, with FF7, I think like they were trying to do a similar thing with Cloud and Aerith, but it didn't
Yeah.
feel close to as natural as I think Squall and Renoa's relationship feels.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's part of where FF7's story goes, but yeah. Anyways, that's good to character discussion. I do want to go into discussing next another controversial aspect of this game, which is just the battle system design and other kind of weird design decisions that this game tries out, which I think there's some good and bad along with it. So just to like quickly summarize, like I feel like this character building is going for a mix of traditional Final Fantasy leveling and a more loose and breakable progression system, like the kind you'd find in like a Final Fantasy II or even like Saga games.
Yeah.
So the main
Oh, I have
difference.
thoughts about that, Alex, but continue.
I mean, like, I'm not saying
I
it's
don't like that comparison at all, but continue. And
I'm
I'll
mostly just talking about like the breakableness of it rather than like
Oh,
specific
yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the main difference here is like with the earlier Final Fantasy games is that there's no MP. There's really a less of an emphasis on experience leveling because enemies scale with your party's level. So you have to rely on drawing and junctioning. And so what you do here is you have a draw mechanic, which can be used in battle or in the overworld at specific points. You draw magic from enemies who tend to have like 2 to 4 spells each. And you store spells numerically, like FF2 style, as we were discussing earlier. You can then junction these spells to your character's stats to boost them, and the increase you get will vary based on one, the strength of the spell. So whether it's Fire, Fira, Firaga, for example, how many units of the spell you're carrying, and the relevance of the spell to the stat. So like offensive magic will be better for boosting your offensive stats, and healing magic will be better for your defensive stats.
Hey, you know what? That was another pet peeve of mine. Is while they keep saying junctioning, I'm like, how the hell does one even junction oneself to
Yeah.
a thing? I'm like, what is this process?
Well, junction
How
is
do
really
I
just
connect
equip,
to my
right?
girlfriend, the Guardian Force?
It's just equip, like it's just equipment, but they
Oh,
call it junction. But it's
like does Aoife get on my back? Like, yeah.
It's really easy. Just click on auto and then forget about everything.
Yeah, that's perfectly viable.
I tripped out so much that first time when Chris was like, did you forget your G? I was like, did you forget your girlfriend?
Yeah,
I know. I always think
I
of
had that
too.
thaught too. Yeah.
It's like, girl,
No,
what the
GF is a
hell?
hilarious acronym for Guardian
Yeah.
Force. But yeah, the GFs are the other big part of character building because essentially they also all level and you equip them to your characters. So these are basically the stand-in for summons as they would appear in any other Final Fantasy. You can summon them to just do like powerful attacks, but they also level up and gain new abilities, and those open up new ways of building your characters. So each GF opens up different junction possibilities, so and stat boosts, so like some will allow you to junction strength or magic, and if once you level them enough, you'll also start being able to learn like just straight up like percentage boostages to those stats, like strength plus 20% plus 40%, etc., depending on the GF. And you can also get special commands that you can learn and flesh out how you want to play the game and build your characters. So the battle designer, Hiroyuki Ito's intention here was to create a battle system, and I quote, that would actively engage players' imaginations and creativity. So, do you guys think he succeeded? Do you enjoy the system? Do you enjoy parts of it? Very curious to hear what the general takes are here.
Absolutely not. I think this is why this is the worst thing about the game to me is the mechanics and the combat system. And I was really, so going in, I had heard that it like has a more complicated system, which my general thought on a lot of the mainline Final Fantasies is that they're too simple, right?
Yeah.
And I like mechanically complex games, so I was really excited. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to have a lot of mechanical depth. And then when I got my hands on the game and got a few hours in, I realized, oh, like it actually doesn't have a lot of mechanical depth. And that is really disappointing, because, and I'm sure, thoughts may differ on that, but I think really what I dislike about the system is that there are opportunities for you to alter and change characters with the GFs and withdrawing and equipping different spells to different things. So there is essentially, like, technically a lot of build variety. But what I dislike about it is that there really isn't, the game doesn't really give you more tools. It's mostly used to increase stats, like flat increases to stats, and then like some, like you can get like status effects or resistance to status effects and things, at least at this point in the game. And to me, that is very boring because you're not really given an expanded tool set in a lot of cases to like deal with things. And to me, that just kind of like ruined the potential of the combat system. Like I really like Final Fantasy Tactics, for example, is another game that you can really break really easily. But the way you break it is by like developing characters to have really unique and interesting tool sets. And so the actual act of doing battles is still really engaging. And here I find that you can make the characters really strong, but then the combat mechanics, just there's like no engagement to it at all. But I don't know how other people feel about that, but that is like my main takeaway from this system.
I mean, I think the only way you can really change the combat up more than that would be to use some of the like special commands that some of the GFs can learn.
Mhm.
So like a few of them have commands other than like magic, draw, item. So you can like slot those in instead of some of those more traditional ones to like change up the kind of skills the characters can have. But yeah, I think I do agree with you. I think it's good because you can like customize your characters. If you want characters with very distinct strengths, you can totally like build your characters in that kind of way. You can have like a magic specialist, like physical attack specialist, or you can have everyone be kind of the same. It's also super easy to break, especially if you use the card game. You can like get ridiculous spells like right at the beginning of the game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it, but I can definitely see your point, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my other issue too is there's no resource economy to this game. So like you can just do the GFs are like these powerful summons that hit every creature on screen. There's like no cost to just doing the GFs if you want. So at the beginning of the game, I mean,
Just
you can
your time.
yeah, just your
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? Because the summon animations are so long. And
3
then
times speed, thank you.
yeah. And then you can just draw from enemies forever. So there's also no, like, it's like, oh well, spells are consumable, so that would add an interesting like resource cost or mechanic. And but it doesn't, because you can just do it endlessly and then get as many spells as you want. So that to me is, I think, what kind of really, like, I really enjoy like resource management in an RPG's combat system, and the fact that there's just no resource cost to pretty much anything is what really, I think, also affects my enjoyment of it.
But there actually is a cost to summoning GFs, although it's maybe quite subtle unless you do it a lot. But if you, depending on who you're summoning, your compatibility with all of the other ones will go down each time you summon a particular
Oh.
GF, and your compatibility dictates how long it takes to summon any particular Guardian Force. So if you were then to swap the one that you had really good compatibility onto someone else, you wouldn't
this
be.
it makes the summon
like,
timer longer.
Yeah,
when
so if you summon someone
Oh.
else,
Don't
it
let
will
your
take
other
longer. And
girlfriends
also,
know that you like the other.
They'll still come, but it'll just be longer.
I also think, although I might be wrong about this, but I also think that spells that you cast of the same element of GFs that you have strong compatibility with are stronger.
Mhm.
So if you
Yeah,
summon
that
like
makes
Ifrit
sense,
a lot
yeah.
and then cast a lot of fire spells, your compatibility with him goes up and your spells get stronger with So yeah, but it depends. If you're not doing it very much, then there isn't really. But yeah,
And
Yeah, I
also
have
like
some-
GFs as like being like just kind of a go-to option in battle does become less and less reliable as the game continues as well, I feel.
Mhm. yeah.
So
I
at
have some-
that point, you can equip really powerful spells, and then your character's stats are just like through the roof anyway, right? I mean, like that's the flip side of that. Like once the GFs fall off, right, you're just like you're just so strong anyway. It doesn't really matter.
Oh, for
I
sure.
guess. Yeah.
I have lots of different feelings about that. Like I remember, again, thinking back to myself playing it originally. We talk about how long this summons take to come, and yeah, they do. But back then, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
I loved
so-
watching
They're
those
very
animations.
So
cool.
impressive.
Yeah.
They kind of spoiled me for all the summons that would come in the future. I kind of always expected summons to be as good and impressive and at my command as they were in 8, and they never really were for me after that. But when it comes to, but I will say I do agree with a lot of the criticisms, and that this isn't the strongest part of the game for me at all. And again, although it didn't really bother me at the time, the drawing system now, even at 3 times speed, it's kind of like, oh great, new enemy, let's settle in for 15 minutes of stocking something up to 100 for every single member of my party, and then forgetting about it for the rest of the game, which is not the best. I gotta say.
Well, and I guess the flip side, the argument against that is like, well, you don't have to do that technically, right? Like I've not run into anything even remote. I mean, I'm not drawing 100 of every spell because I can't do it. It's boring.
Yeah.
And I'm not running into any problems like with the combat and any boss or anything. So I guess it's like you don't have to do it. But
I know.
also,
I tell myself that, but then I'm like, oh no, God, this is that urge to just keep going. Maybe I need 2 more. No.
Yeah, so I think these are all good points. On one hand, like I completely acknowledge criticisms of like the system here. I think it's like not very elegant and a little sloppy in parts. But I do think it gets overhated a little bit because I mean, like are these possibilities of like overpowering yourself not also possible in like pretty much every RPG, just in a more like conventional form? Like people say that like, oh, I don't want to just like sit in battle and like draw magic. But like, okay, if you don't want to overpower yourself, if you want to overpower yourself in another game, you just sit in a battle and grind experience. So it's like it's the same kind of time consuming thing. And like Ben, you raised Final Fantasy Tactics. The way you get stronger in that game ultimately comes down to like hitting your own party members in the end. Like, so that's not exactly the most elegant. Exactly. But it's the same thing here. You can sit around drawing a bunch of magic, but you don't have to. The game's not challenging enough that you need to, as you were saying.
But what I would say is I think the act of breaking the game in other games, like you brought up the Saga series or Final Fantasy Tactics, I think is more engaging than the act of breaking the game here, if that makes sense. Because or more that what is left after you've broken the game remains engaging, and here I feel like it isn't as engaging once you've broken it. And maybe that's a problem with setting out to break the game in the first place, right? But I just don't feel that it really maintains like engagement once you understand like how the systems work with the combat. Like it's just the moment to moment experience of combat is not very. I don't find it very fun, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that in the comparison for Saga, just because I think those games are designed around that. But for most other RPGs, I feel like this still is like a little more experimental and engaging, and I feel like I'm making more decisions as a player and building my party than just grinding experience.
Mm.
So
Doesn't
on
help
that
when
point,
they do like
Yeah.
10-second win poses for every one guy they beat up.
I mean, yeah,
Oh,
that's
it's
true.
10 times hard.
The amount of time consumption in the PS1 Final Fantasies are just inexcusable.
It's bad.
Mm.
But
Those Reddit guys.
that's what
Yeah, I
3 times
agree.
speed is for.
I agree with you, Alex. Like, I think there is maybe more going on behind the scenes than maybe a typical RPG. I think also I'm not a big fan of the like traditional ATB battle system in Final Fantasy, and I don't know that that marries well to these mechanics either. Right? Like, I almost think that the basic foundations of the battle system are also letting the mechanics down. In a way, like if they were tied to a more interesting core battle system, then it might be better. But I don't think that ATB is really interesting and engaging enough on its own to then support the kind of complex the attempt at a more complex character building and progression system that they've put to it here, if that makes sense.
I kind of like the urgency of the ATB thing, and sometimes even that the whole draw game, especially if you're up against something more powerful, it makes it a little bit more exciting because it's kind of a balance of, well, do I draw a few more of these off and risk getting absolutely wiped out by this thing, or do I not? So yeah, I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah, and I feel like you could basically make a hard mode for yourself if you just do every battle in 3 times speed, because then the more you're just kind of making decisions and navigating through menus, the more the enemy is just like attacking you. I experimented with that a little bit, and yeah, it definitely makes the game harder if you're up for that. But
My
yeah,
other thought-
go ahead.
No, I was saying it just almost came out of my head, but my other thought was some of the negativity nowadays is towards the whole level scaling thing as well, isn't it? That there's pointless, you fight the enemies, it goes harder, and it comes to, again, I suppose it comes to how you approach the game and how you personally approach RPGs. Like, say, some people really love, like you, Ben, I think, to break a game, or you, Alex, I know, to explore those systems to that sort of depth. And to me, I'm not as interested in that. I'm more sort of narrative focused. So even now I know that scaling happens. I just make the conscious decision to sort of turn my brain off and just play it as I did back then, not knowing anything about the level scaling and not really caring about it. And I feel that seems to have helped me anyway.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But the battle system isn't the only weird design choice in this game. There are another couple things that I think this game tries out that kind of confused like longtime RPG fans, like the whole idea that you don't earn money through battles, but rather you have like a salary associated with like your seed level, which actually can go up or down depending on like your performance in missions. A lot of the missions in this game end up using a timer as a way of kind of trying to measure this and having like an extra like determining factor of like, oh, is your seed level going to go up or down? You can rent cars for overworld exploration. There's crafting rather than just like purchasing weapons in shops. A lot of like kind of just like weird choices in this game. That yeah, I think like it's just an example of the game trying to modify RPG conventions as a way of like supporting its world building. So although a lot of these aren't like tightly designed, I kind of vibe with them for that reason. I don't know how everyone else feels.
Yeah, Alex, I also think that the set pieces, like the gameplay set pieces that this game uses, are one of the more interesting things about it. Like when you're doing the train heist,
Mhm.
and so it's like a timing and stealth based kind of thing where you have to put in the code to decouple the train cars and then run across and not be seen while you're putting in the code, and then all that, like, that's interesting. It's like them playing with what the format of like an RPG is, and like what kind of action elements you can add to an RPG, and that is like really interesting. I think that it adds a lot to the set pieces. I think like it's kind of similar to Final Fantasy VI in that way, where there are a lot of like kind of set piece moments, and sometimes it feels like the game is kind of hurrying you along from one set piece to another, like Final Fantasy VI is designed. But I do think that they actually make those set pieces more interesting from a gameplay design standpoint than like previous games have. where there is actually a gameplay element to it, and not just like showing you something cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially getting to what is my favorite part of this game is like the set piece structure. Like this game, like more than even 6 or 7, like gets away from like that Dragon Quest convention of like town, overworld, dungeon. Like the only like conventional dungeons I would say in Disc 1 here are like the Fire Cavern, which you do at the very beginning of the game, and the totally optional Tomb Dungeon later on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like rather than like having like a conventional dungeon be where you're battling and stuff, you have these like very specific like narrative set piece moments, like the Siege of Dolet and like um the whole like timber sequence and things like that. It's just really cool stuff. I love the experimentation with the narrative design in those segments.
Yeah,
I think those are really good points, and the pacing and that variety is something that really appeals to me now, and I think it must have done back then as well. This way the story just moves along, and it takes you with it, and and we're talking about world building. I think there are enough layers added on in each different section until we, as you say, arrive at the end of disc 1 in that huge parade. Particularly as you said, the train segment, I absolutely loved it. And it's been so long since I played it, I didn't remember any of that. And it is such a so refreshing to have those sort of segments stuck into the middle of
I thought like the
um
pacing of 8 was like really good in that way. Like they'd have giant segments where you're, very busy, 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 fight, fight, followed by nice long periods of downtime as well. And I think the PS1 FFs did a really good job of finding that balance between like doing something silly or just, doing something low key
Yeah.
compared to the later ones. Like FF10 was very linear but cutscene oriented. 12 was like sort of like offline MMO where it had like kind of long periods where you were outside and doing stuff in the world, and 13 was the corridors. But like I think the like 7, 8, and 9 knew how to break itself up a lot better.
It just feels really organic. Like
Yeah.
it's not forced at all. And I think even in comparison to like quite a lot of modern RPGs, I'm just thinking of like Trails of Cold Steel or something, for example, where it does have like a very rigid structure of like first you do this bit of the chapter, and then you do the dungeon bit, and then you explore somewhere, and it just like repeats the same pattern for every chapter. I do enjoy those games, but I love this more kind of like natural feel to the story, and the fact that you don't really know what's going to come next. You don't know whether you're going to be going to a town. You don't know whether you're going to be going to a dungeon. You don't know what
It's honestly a great point. Yeah, like you don't really know what's going to happen next. Sometimes you think you're going to go do something safe and easy or a mission, and then you just get totally sidetracked.
Yeah, it's designed a lot more like a cinematic like action game, like Metal Gear Solid or something, instead of like an RPG, right? Like you're the format feels like they were thinking more about the demands of like the presentation and the narrative, and like putting like stringing scenes together as opposed to like following the formula or structure of a typical RPG, and that makes it feel very different than other games.
Yeah, I think you might be on to something there. And as you mentioned earlier, with this coming just before The Spirits Within, it was like the height of those movie ambitions really probably making themselves evident within this game.
Yeah, and it's a time when Square was very experimental with a lot of their game production, where they were making things like Einhander or Racing Lagoon, just like really
Parasite Eve,
experimental.
yeah.
Parasite Eve,
That whole
right?
PS1 era is just
Yeah.
untouchable. Like it's unique, weird, and just great all at the same time.
And this game is like, I think the one like where they tried to do that with still kind of remaining in the bounds of a traditional RPG the most, but still really experimental, like within those bounds. And that's kind of interesting, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned the playable backflashes to Laguna and all that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'll definitely get to that. But yeah, I just
Sorry.
like
Well, I guess Triple Triad is a good example of that too, right? Like having an entire card game in like a regular game is kind of a crazy thing to do, right? It's like that kind of experimental ethos is in that.
Yeah, and I just love like in those set piece moments, all like kind of just like the lazing around parts, like in Dolet, for example, when I don't know if you guys remember that screen where it's just you, Squall, Zell, and Cypher,
Hmm.
and like Zell's pacing around, Cypher's like hitting his gunblade against his soldier, and you're just like kind of like waiting for the next orders. There's like the dog there, which Cypher like starts like kind of abusing. It's like that, or like sitting in the train and like kind of just like people are talking, but it's like kind of sparse with dialogue. It all like
Mhm.
builds such a nice naturalism to the pace,
Mhm.
as some of you have been describing it.
Yeah, and
Really,
I
really
actually
love
think
that.
that adds a lot to the feeling of like these characters being at war, because if you read a lot of like narratives of war and like soldiers' experiences in war, it's like 90% mundanity and then like
Yeah.
10% you're about to die. Right? And this game really does. That's a good point, Alex. It like really captures that feeling of like, yeah, sometimes in war you're just standing around waiting for something to happen, or like securing a point and there's no action and you have to deal with the boredom,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of that with the characters, and that makes it feel more real for sure.
Yeah, and it helps the characters just breathe a little bit more,
Mhm.
which is great. All right, so we've been talking a lot about the different kind of like set pieces this game is structured around, and that factors heavily into just the progression of Disc 1. We're already running a bit long, so I feel like we can just talk a little bit about what some of our favorite set pieces in Disc 1 is. Who wants to get us started with
I
kind of
will.
like the more memorable moments? Okay, Steph, please go ahead.
The introduction.
Okay, tell us more.
Honestly, I just want to talk about the opening video just because it really, really starts the game off with a bang. And like, FF7 already had a really good start with that huge pan out to see all of Midgar and kind of give you the, set the stage for the foreseeable future. But I kind of like how, FF8 kind of goes between like what is currently happening, the fight between Squall and Cypher, this big climactic showdown of theirs, kicking things off, and these kind of artful images, and this montage of things to come, and this person who's going to come into your life and change it all around. You see the villains, I find it truthfully a little corny these days, but just as cool all the same. And I don't know, I just think it's such a powerful way to start the game, especially with choir like that chanting at you. Like, it's a very bold way to start a game. I think it
Yeah.
kind of shows you how it's wearing its artful approach on its sleeve at first. Like, it's gonna have a very creative kind of minded title this time around with the way it kind of wanted to open with itself.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
and
like corny and
absolutely.
cool is the best way to describe Tetsuya Nomura's work.
Kind of
And
now, right?
I feel like, yeah, we really get that in the opening. Like you were talking about, like the before the cinematic, even like that
I mean,
montage
have you
of
ever
just
met a
like
17-year-old trying to be cool? I mean, it's just comes off as hilarious when you're older. But yeah, it's still a very impressive way to begin things. Sorry, go on.
No, you get those like the opening credits, so you see like the staff, and then it's like intercut with like black and white like photos of like the cast
Those
and
look
like
really cool
different things. It's
too.
it's so
Yeah,
sick.
stylish. You know.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
as
and
you
then
say, marrying it with that music, which is just one of the most iconic tracks for the whole game, and you get it in the first couple of minutes.
And like I say, it's
You can't
corny, but I
beat
mean,
it,
there's
really.
that one point of the song I get shivers every time. Like, when the drum is kind of
Mm.
going off with the rest of the chorus, and they're about to, go at each other's throats. But yeah, it's riveting stuff, and it looks so cool. And it kind of repurposes some of the like other CGs in it, and changes like the background, so you don't know the context.
yeah,
So it's like
I mean it's
good at
edited
working
like a
itself.
music video, really.
For real, yeah, yeah.
Like the feathers flying everywhere, cutting
It's an
between the
AMV.
duel and yeah,
Yeah,
different characters.
it's a little
It
anime
needs
music
some
video for
Linkin
sure.
Park behind it.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if there was already a fan edit.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's plenty of them.
Very 2000 song Enigma's Gravity of Love was a big one. I remember that one getting posted all the time. And like, yeah, it's good. It's corny AMV stuff, but it's fun to watch if you're into that stuff.
No, I dig it.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have something they want to shout out?
Yeah, they.
Go on.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, just off the back of Steph bringing up the CG at the beginning, the Dollet mission is one of my favorite bits
Yeah.
of the first disc for the same reason. I think the mission itself is really cool anyway, but like the intro of them like going over on the boat and
music,
the
the build.
explosions in the background, and the music is so good. And then like crashing on the beach and everyone running out of the boats. It's really good. And then obviously you also have the one on the way back when you're being chased by the boss, unless you've killed it, obviously.
The CG
and then
where
like
they're
and Quistis
going
is there
across
with
the water and the moon.
It's so good. But like
So pretty.
yeah, Quistis there with the like massive gun on top of the
Yeah.
ship, like
Where
Yeah.
she wastes the spider
just-
tank. Yeah,
it's-
that's what I was
yeah.
gonna say. So
And like
yeah.
Selfie
amazing.
and War is still tumbling down a little
Yeah.
hill.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Yeah, it's great. It's a really good mission.
Yeah.
I always love playing through that bit.
Yeah.
No, yeah, the duet sequence does like that. Those transitions between like the pre-rendered backgrounds and like those
Oh, they're
like
so good.
motion gifs you were talking about, Ben. Like that is like really where it really
Mhm.
comes to light what this game is
Especially
trying
like how
to
it
achieve
improved from
technically.
FF7. Like
Yeah.
everything here is just so much cleaner.
Smoother. Yeah.
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 Like
Since
FF7
Rob-
originally was using big, blocky, chunky 3D and like gradients to shade everything, but this one is actually like textures and like more precise movements, and like the characters are pantomiming more,
Mm.
you know, to kind of really illustrate their dialogue. Like the amount of times like Squall puts his head in his palm and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was just gonna say, since Rob took mine, I was gonna say the family in Timber where you hide out in their house. Like that is a very funny
Yeah.
sequence where you talk to the daughter and she's like, I can't wait to meet a great guy I can scream at and exchange blows with. And you're like, what?
Is that the same one who's like, the legend goes that my mother took down many soldiers with her strength, cooking, and beauty?
Yes. And then the kids upstairs are trying to charge you to look through the window, and then the mom comes up and just starts like spanking the kid. It's like, whoa, what the heck is going
The
on
interior
here?
house design of this game, it just is so delicious. You know, it like I like how a lot of the homes are unique, especially compared to like how
Mhm.
old sprite-based Final Fantasies were, where they were literally all the same. But like, it's just so cool to see how the houses look in this game. They're so cozy.
Yeah, I feel like Timber more than any other location in the game really like emphasizes NPCs a bit more. Like you really get to like
Yeah.
know some like characters kind of casually. I really liked in that sequence the Timber Maniacs editor-in-chief, like kind of like talking to Squall, and like
Yeah.
Squall just starts internal monologuing about like just
Yeah,
another stupid story by a
I have a
boring adult.
screenshot of that. So he says, this is so typical, adults reminiscing and talking on and on about the things they couldn't do or didn't do.
Yeah.
Which is
Give
very
that screenshot
true.
to Mike. Let him use it for the podcast.
Yeah, that describes us right now.
No.
But it's very, I'm like, oh dang, Squall's like right on the money there. Old people do love to talk about stuff they didn't do or couldn't do.
Yeah, I mean, like he's an edgelord for sure, but occasionally he does produce moments of insight.
Oh yeah, he's got like
Yes.
nuggets of wisdom coming out every so often. It's really great to see how he like changes like that, like how he's just very shut off to like, why would I want to talk about it? I just feel things, you know. I don't want to feel that.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to empathize with you?
I didn't make it all the way through my mercenary academy, so so I feel that comment about, you know, talking about things you can't do on this. But yeah, I suppose as I've talked about, you know, my hopeless romantic nature as to why I loved this game so much, I should probably talk about the dance sequence.
Oh,
And I really love it. The Rinoa dragging the reluctant Squall onto the floor and his several attempts to leave.
oh no, she cast a witch spell on him. I'm convinced.
Yeah, must have done. And that beautiful sequence ending with their perfect, which is very, you know, again, quite Disney-ish, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
suddenly he's a terrible dancer until the very end when he's
Beauty and the
100%
Beast, like,
synchronized. Yeah.
Ballroom scene from Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah.
basically, right? Yeah.
I do like that by the end. I think like they both realized they had way more fun than they thought.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
Squall
great way for
especially, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's so lovingly
surprised.
animated, like him
Yeah.
being terrible at dancing and like stumbling over her in like a very realistic way to how someone who is not good at dancing would do. Like,
I like
it's
when she
very
tells off that other
impressive.
couple too. Like,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
doing
they
a
run
little
into them.
stink face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the expressiveness for again, an FMV from the '90s.
They had to, right? Like without the
Um,
voices, it's great to see how much they pantomimed. Like they couldn't do that with the
Mm.
FF7 like brick fists, you know. So
Oh
they
my
actually got
goodness,
better
yeah.
rendered characters that
Yeah.
react better, and like stupid Zell like on the spot fighting and all that, or just Irvine kind of looking cool, or Selphie being silly. Like I do love the way all the characters are represented without that voice. They had to
Mhm.
compensate a lot in those PS1 days.
For
Definitely.
sure. And I know that for the FMVs in this game, um, this was like the developers saying this, so I can't confirm if it's completely true, but apparently it was the first time devs used motion capture technology for like purely cutscene narrative reasons
Ooh, not
rather than like
surprised. Yeah,
action games
they
and
look
things
so
like
good.
that.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
realism in the ballroom sequence is like, I think, really accentuated by that fact that they did use actually motion cap to develop it.
It
The
convinced them
intro
they
as
could
well
make a
when they're
movie.
fighting, you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really tell it's true. I never thought to say it out loud though. Yeah, no, that's definitely all mocapped. That's cool.
Yeah, but I also love how we in that sequence we see like Squall at his most like unsure of himself, like in
Mhm.
any part of disc 1. Like when he's dancing with Renoa, he looks like genuinely like concerned, he looks a little clumsy. He also looks like captivated by her. I think like at that point he's begun like falling in love even if he doesn't really admit it to himself yet. I think the game like did that really well, just like through visuals and no dialogue.
Yeah, and to hark back to earlier points, it sets Renoa up as someone he can't deal with in the same way he does all of his other classmates, with his dismissiveness and
No, she gets up
um,
in his face about it. I actually really
yeah,
like her approach.
yeah,
Because yeah, he's not coming out of his shell on his own, so like she kind of tugs him out of it.
Mm.
And he's the best looking guy in the room.
Yeah, sure.
Except for Cypher, apparently, because Renoa seems to have more of a crush on
That's
Cypher.
true.
Irving
She was
girl!
lying. She was lying to his face.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong with Renoa's chunky 90s highlights.
Oh yeah.
Love those.
Nice.
I remember looking at her when I was a little girl. I was like, wow, she looks so real in those bicycle shorts.
But I'll just shout out kind of something we haven't really touched on too much, which is just the fact that there's a whole flashback dream like sub story being
yeah, we did not
developed
talk
in
about that,
disc
yeah.
1, which is with Laguna, one of my absolute favorite Final Fantasy characters. So the first time this happens is when the party's just traveling on a train to Timber and they all like suddenly fall asleep. And suddenly we're playing as these 3 different characters who are all Galbadian soldiers named Laguna, Kyrios, and Ward. And this was just like, I remember the first time experiencing this, I was like so riveted about like what the hell is going on here. I was so compelled by my confusion.
Especially
Because
when
like,
that battle music washes over you the first time.
oh my god, the
Yes.
man
It's
with
like,
a
oh,
machine
wow.
So
gun.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, top tier battle theme.
You're just like, what is happening? I like it.
And like,
And I like the contrast where it's like, Laguna and his soldier friends, which is something Squall has yet to do. So you get that totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Laguna's
they're
like
already
almost the
buddies.
opposite of Squall. He's like
Yeah.
a huge goofball and
Pure
like
puppy dog, yeah.
Yeah. It's very funny.
His whole odyssey is just something to behold. Like in a remake, you'd want to see more of it, I think.
yeah, I think it's like that's a key point there, is like the contrast between Skull and Laguna, because Laguna's like a guy who comes off as really unserious and goofy, and to Squall, like Squall's internal monologuing while the Laguna sequences are playing out, which makes it even more surreal. And he's kind of like poking fun at Laguna, like in the scene where Laguna goes up to Julia, who's like an artist playing piano. His leg starts cramping up, which is hilarious. And he's just like kind of walking around limping like near the piano. It's really
He's
funny.
lucky he's
When he
cute, I
wakes
guess.
up, he's like he says something like I was a moron or something like that.
I
It's
dreamt I was a
like-
moron, yeah.
I dreamt that I was a moron. Is such a
Yes,
good
that's what he
line.
says. Yeah, it's so funny. That made me laugh a lot.
But I read it as like these contrasting like kind of versions of like masculinity that ends up reflecting kind of poorly on Squall, because Laguna's just able to like embrace who he is, be himself, and he attracts like the girl of his dreams. And
Yeah.
in contrast, like Squall's like shut-in Sigma male persona kind of keeps people at bay and kind of initially prevents him from developing a relationship with Renoa, who he is clearly interested in, I think.
It's one of those things that doesn't has a tangible benefit, but morale is such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't really quantify it like you could bullets or something. But like, you know, to have good morale and to have support of people in your circle is honestly such a big deal.
Yeah, so we don't really know what's going on with these Laguna sequences, but as the only person who hasn't played this game, I gotta ask Ben, like, what's your interpretation of them so far?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get they're kind of going for like showing you both sides of the conflict and like trying to humanize the Galbadians like a little bit, which I think makes sense because it's clear that they're kind of being used for somebody else's ends, like with Idea and everything. So I think it's good to like give you a sense that like the enemies are not just this faceless empire of monsters, that they're just people too. So I like that aspect of it, but I have absolutely no idea where it's going.
Okay.
Nor would you, I think. Like, yeah, it's hard to
Yeah, I
predict.
didn't either at the
Yeah.
time, so I was just
Yeah.
curious.
But it doesn't bother. Like I like those sections. I think it made the game a lot more interesting. Like the first time that happened, I was like, oh, like okay, like there's something like meta. There's some kind of meta narrative here going on that's like really really intriguing. And so that is probably the thing that has me most intrigued about the storyline going forward, is like how they're going to tie them together with like what Squall and Renoa and everyone are doing.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll definitely be talking more about that next episode.
And the moon.
The moon does
witch
come
came
up,
from the
yeah.
moon.
So we'll just end off quickly summarizing where the story is at this point at the end of disc 1. So the last kind of set piece we get here is the Sorceress Parade in Dilling City. So at this point, the main party are officially mercenaries with Seed, and they've been hired to help assassinate Idia by Fury Caraway, who's a military general of Galbadia, but is kind of becoming hesitant of their partnership with this very sketchy sorceress, kind of like the big like fascistic overtones that are developing there. And General Caraway is also Renoa's dad, who she's like kind of embarrassed to be associated with at this point. But just like the Sorcerer's Parade, I think in terms of its narrative design is a real highlight in the game. Like you split up into two different parties. You're like going through like the sewers. Like both parties are navigating the city in different ways. There's this giant
Sewer dungeon.
spectacle. It's
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. So how did you guys feel about this sequence?
I love it. I hate the sewers, but everything else I love. It has a really cool like sense of urgency to the whole thing. It's really exciting. Again,
I do love
apart
everything
from
with
the
Idea.
sewers,
Feels very freaky.
yeah.
Yeah, thirded on the sewers. That was just I have no idea what I was doing. Wandered around in circle. Typical sewer dungeon stuff. Apart from riding in a big water wheel, I don't think you do that
No.
too often.
I'm always so confused of like the technology of the setting. Like it's like really high end on some levels, and then like some people still live in wooden houses on others. Like like a crazy dichotomy between places.
Yeah, that comes up earlier too when they're trying to get the like TV signal going, and they like
Yeah.
remark that like, oh, there hasn't been a TV broadcast like that in a long time, and it's like, wait, what? Like you have like
Yeah.
these flying mech things, but you can't send TV signals around. It's crazy.
But I think that I really like about the whole sequence is that traditional kind of the entire plan going wrong, as you said earlier on, the teams getting separated, and then Adia getting trapped as they anticipated, and just being completely invulnerable to their attack, and Irvin's complete freak down at that point as well, which is his best moment.
It's so
I think.
good.
Cool, I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame he doesn't really build on that, but that particular instance is great.
He gets off lucky, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I just love the comedic timing of it because like this whole time, like Irvine has kind of been gassing himself up as like a really like badass sniper. and like kind of like flirting with the women, like coming off as really confident. And then you get to like the sniper point. Squall and Noah go like talk to each other for a second. Squall goes back to Irvine. He's just on the ground shaking. Like his character model is just shaking, and he's like, I can't do it. He's like, I'm a fraud.
And then like Squall like goes busting out of a place and driving out there.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wild and over the top, and just this game doing what it does best, I think. But with that, I think we'll call it here. We didn't really get into Triple Triad, but I feel like we can dive in part 2 along with the rest of the story. And yeah, thanks for joining me on this this playthrough, guys. It's been a lot of fun discussing the game so far, and we have a lot more to discuss coming up, including the moon.
Booyah shaka.
All right. So just to do like the general housekeeping, in 2 weeks we're obviously doing part 2 of Final Fantasy VIII Game Journal. But coming after that, yeah, I mean like from the listeners, not for us, but for the listeners stuff. Coming after that, we are gonna have a podcast on the top 10 PSV60 RPGs, so our favorite RPGs from the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Wii era. And as I alluded to earlier, Michael Solosi will be returning to host that. And then our game journal after that will be the Falcom cult classic Xanadu Next, which will be hosted by Ben.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to join you on that, Ben. So if you want to email us, you can get in touch through retro@rpgfan.com. I won't be able to read what you send, but Zach will. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter /X, Blue Sky, Twitch, and YouTube as RPG Fan or RPG Fan.com. And you can also join the RPG Fan Discord. We also have an RPG Fan shop hosted by TeePublic. We also have 2 other great podcasts associated with the site. One called Random Encounter, which does kind of current releases and industry events, and the other Rhythm Encounter, which focuses on RPG music. You can review us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you listen to things on. We would love your feedback. And finally, where can you find us individually on social media? And we can start with you, Rob.
I am on Blue Sky, Neon Cowboy.
How about you, Steph?
I'm Dice SMS everywhere. Dice like playing dice, and SMS like yeah. Come follow me. I like to draw pictures. Actually, I do art stuff and video game stuff. So yay.
And it's really good. How about you, Paul?
Yeah, my name on, I mean, not the words my name, literally my name on Blue Sky, and Lord Spiral on the Discord.
And Ben?
You can email me at benloganlove@gmail.com.
As for me, you can email me at alexfraniczek@gmail.com. All right, that sums up everything for today. Whatever, what have you, and we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk more about this game. Good night and good luck.